So when it comes to the cycling world, hands down, one of my favorite things to do is build a bike. Guys, today we are building up the Winspace SLC 3.0. Let's roll. So before we build this up, let me take you through the bike itself. I've done a video on it previously. Today I'm building up a size large. It's a brand new frame from Winspace. It's their super light climber and it's the Gen 3 version. We're whacking on a set of Hyper D67s. I know, I'm building a light climbing bike and I'm putting deep dish wheels on it, but where I live is pretty flat and there's only the odd hill, so style over function, I guess, is my answer to that one. We've got the SRAM Force crank and chainring. We are then going to use a Neutron cassette at the back, and we are using the wheel top EDS group set. It's something that I need to check out. It's something that I said that I would review. So I'm going to put this on the new build and just see how I get on with it. We've got the Zero SL bars, and they are 380 width with a 115mm stem. And for one of the most important bits, we have a ceramic cycling bottom bracket, which I'm hoping is going to help the drivetrain move nice and smooth, seeing as we are using a SRAM dub crank and spindle. And to finish it off, I've gone for some reasonably cheap bar tape. I'm not sure how well I'm going to get on with the wheel top, and in an emergency, I do have the ability to pull the SRAM Force group set off of my old bike and put it on the new one. I'll also be finishing with some Criterium RS tires, 28mm, which are going to go on the Lun Hypers, which have an internal width of 23mm. So that 28 might sit closer to 29, even 30, but I'm not going to kind of caliper it because I'm just not that guy. So I'm super excited about this one, and the first thing we're going to have to do is get the seat post into the frame so I can get it set up in the stand, and then we can start working on it. Guys, I'll take you through the whole journey, so stick around. So the first thing we are going to do is drop the seat post in. It's a nice round seat post, which makes it pretty universal. So you could upgrade this or just use an old one, but the seat post is provided with the frame. It also has the torque spec 6 Newton meters on the clamp, which makes it super handy. So this bit is brand new to me, which is the wheel top group set. First thing we need to do is mount the front and rear brake calipers on here, run the cables. We're going to start off with the rear and then we'll do the front fork before we put it in the frame. Hopefully this should be as easy as is, and they provide bolts. I'm just hoping they are the right length for this particular chain stay width. We could get caught out if they're not. This should be pretty easy. Now, I do think this wheel top group set could be a bit of a game changer, maybe down the line, and we're going to see how good it actually is in terms of performance. But from an installation point of view, they already have a hook on the end of their hydraulic cable wires, which will help you guide the wire through the frame, especially on the front fork. Sometimes there isn't always a guide channel. The only thing that not the only thing, but one of the things is just the design of these brake calipers. They're not particularly sexy, and I like sexy. Always worth pointing out that if you are running a big disc on the rear, like a 160, you are gonna have to use a mounting plate. We've got 160 up front, 140 in the rear, so we can just basically bolt this straight on. This bolt comes with a washer. This other bolt has a washer, but I think because of the way that they've painted it or anodized it or whatever they've done, that washer is now just stuck to the screw, so that washer is basically pointless. Right, first things first though, we just run the cable, which is the nice thing about disc brake bikes. You only have 2 cables to run, front and rear calipers, and it should straight out the top of the frame. Then all we have to do is worry about bolting this on. So I'm also mounting or fitting the wheel top hydraulic system, at least, without even checking the user manual. Not always the smartest thing to do, but it is quite intuitive. There's a plate on the front caliper for a 160, a plate for a 140, a little arrow that shows you which way up it goes, and you can figure it out. And there is a second plate there is a plate for the rear if you are running a 160 rotor at the rear. So you can't really get too confused. I'm hoping these could be my famous last words. So we're going to mount the plate for the 160 rotor at the front to the caliper, then mount the caliper to the front fork, get the front fork up into the frame. And I will add at this point, I have already cut down the steerer tube because it's not that exciting. Okay, so we've come up to our first problem, which is the hook that is meant to help run the cable through the fork. The channel inside is not big enough for it to come out the side of the fork. And I know that because I can't get it down. So if it can't go down, it's not going to come back up. Not the biggest problem in the world, but it does mean I'm now going to have to take this off, run the cable, and these come, hopefully, they come kind of pre-pressurized. And I was hoping to not have to bleed the brakes because I was hoping to do it quite efficiently. But this means I'm definitely going to have to bleed the brakes. Breed the brakes. Not the worst thing in the world, but between the two, bit annoying. Straight up, straight out, perfect. Lid back on. Hopefully by keeping it vertical, we haven't lost too much mineral oil. Maybe we can get away with not bleeding the brakes. But the nice thing is that there's clearly a channel in there for the front hydraulic hose to run through, which means you just jam it up, push it through. So whilst that was a bit annoying to take the cap off, it's way easier than having to fish around in there to try and hook out the end. So these guide pins on the cables are just pointless now because you saw me just run the rear one through. The front one comes through super easy. So this is the fun bit with the headset bearings. We're going to make sure that we grease these, put them in top and bottom, that way up, top and bottom. Then the fork goes in, or this one goes on the fork, and then the fork comes in. Make sure I don't cross the wires. There is I'll come to it in a second, but a little issue with the front fork. 1 sec. So you can use all sorts of different things to hold the front fork in place, but you are going to need something. People use zip ties. I have some Velcro tape. So these are the Zero SL integrated bar and stem from Winspace, $290. We've got a 115mm stem, 380 width on the bars. We're going to run the cables up internally through the front, right hand side. So the interesting thing is that the cable comes out the left hand side of the fork and then comes into the right hand side because we're in the UK and we front brake on the right hand side. So we're not going to cross the cables because the rear cable comes and then just sits on the other side of that. But is it ideal? Well, there's nothing we can do about it really. Right, we finally got to the point where we have the cables through the bars. I'm not going to say it's a bit of a pain, it's a massive pain, but we are done now. Okay, I'm going to jump in here real quick because I need you to know something. As much as I hate to admit it, I think I have to come clean. So the Velcro that was holding up the front bars came loose. I took it off and then reapplied it, redid it, retightened it. The only problem was that I managed to twist the forks 180 degrees before doing it. So if you look at the forks, they're now on backwards. So I cut the steerer fork a few mil below the top of the bars. We're going to tighten that up. We're not going to tighten anything to spec just yet. We'll do that later. And we'll whack the top cap on. And then that should keep it in place. Top cap just to sit on top, tie it all in. I can't necessarily say I love this bit. Time to do levers, and then we're going to connect up the hydraulic cables. And this is when it starts getting interesting. Shouldn't be too hard. Famous last words. There have been a few shouts on the wheel tops that the rubbers are really stiff. It's pretty much same as usual. Most rubbers are quite stiff, but these are particularly stiff, so we're just going to make sure we get the right one on the right side and then get that up. That was way harder than it needed to be. Now we're going to run the hoses. My cheeky tip for hoses is put a bit extra back into the headset. That way later, if it comes to taking it off and taking it to pieces, give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. So if you have never done a hydraulic brake cable before, it's not that hard, don't fret. We have two little nubbins that are going to go onto that cable. The first is a bolt, the second is like a lock washer, and then that's going to go on, and then we're going to screw this tiny little nubbin into the bit part of the cable at the end. But firstly we have to cut it to the correct length. So what I like to do is get a nice marker, grab the wire, I push the wire back in just slightly, I don't like jam it loads in, just to give myself a bit of spare room, because you never know, if you're changing, you might end up changing something, headset, stem length, something like that. If you cut your wire on a short stem and realize you need a longer stem, you've cut the cable too short, you're doolallied. And I'm giving myself plenty of room to get that into place and then screw it in a second. Just be aware, like a better set of wire cutters, obviously the better cut you're going to get, and it's important because you need that end thing to go in. Just, you know, do what you can, be good. So this has definitely not been the easiest hydraulic group set to install, but I've resorted to grabbing the SRAM wire installer tabby thing, and we're going to try do it that way by just jamming this in. This was a lot easier on the SRAM system, so this all kind of works in. I imagine it might be why why bike shops don't tend to work on these systems, because the installation of it is just a little bit more difficult if you don't know what you're doing. You need a lot of tools to do it. All the right tools make all the difference, but I am definitely probably gonna have to bleed these brakes. Oh, I've got to do the other side now. I'm gonna see you in a second once this is done, then we're gonna focus on bottom bracket because I've had enough of this. So the bit that I am not massively looking forward to is this, which is installing a press fit bottom bracket, and we have a cycling ceramic BB86 with a dub spindle, or it's wide enough for a dub to go through. So we're going to press in both sides one at a time, and I do have a bearing press, but I've never done this before, so we're going to see how it goes. Wish me luck. A good quality bottom bracket was one of my main priorities for this build, but my last build had a thread together bottom bracket, and this is two pieces. Also, it comes with some like kind of washers or spacers that can come outside of the bottom bracket. I do wish that these things had more instructions to them, because there's a few things in there that I don't know what this silver washer is for. I presume it might have to end up sitting on the out. I don't know. I've got no idea what that silver washer is for. And then there's a couple of spacers if you need to move your chainring out a little bit so it doesn't catch on your front derailleur, or at least I think that is what it's for. So if you can do this at home, grab some towel, isopropyl alcohol, really clean this out, because even just that carbon dust needs to be removed, because we want nothing, absolutely nothing getting in our bottom bracket. Pressing in a BB86, something I will never do again. Oof, that feels nice and flush, nice and tight both sides. Not gonna risk going any tighter. Yeah, that bottom bracket is in. And to me, it looks like it's very well aligned, but we're not really gonna be able to tell until we get the spindle through. Right, so we're almost ready to put the spindle through and do the front chain ring and the cranks. But first, I'm gonna flip the frame around, and we're going to get the front derailleur and the rear derailleur mounted. Then we can worry about putting the chain rings on and go from there. Front derailleur, rear derailleur, let's go. So the nice thing about the wheel top is that it runs on the SRAM model, which is these just basically bolt on. So this has to be one of the easy things, because this build has been a little bit trickier than I thought. Rear derailleur, easy enough. Front derailleur just goes onto the braze-on, so I can just pull out this screw and knock it on to the braze-on, and we don't have to worry about aligning it or indexing the front derailleur. There's also lots of holes for gear cables. There are a bunch of little rubber bungs that you can basically use to go through and bung these all up, which is 100% what I'm going to do a bit further down the line. So I'm going to leave it quite loose because obviously we need to align it, so it just needs to be on for now. So we have the moment of truth now with the dub spindle. I'm going to put it on, and I'm probably not going to tighten it too much because I might need a spacer. Depends on whether the crank arm clears the front derailleur once we have indexed it and set it to the right position. But if this goes through, then we have a good bottom bracket. Lovely. Perfect. Well done me. Well done me. I mean, there's still the whole front fork thing on the wrong way around thing that we've got to deal with, but yeah, well done me. This is definitely part of the SRAM system that I do not enjoy, which is the way that these come together. SRAM have got to get a better way of doing that. And we're definitely going to need some spacers because there's a huge amount of play. So we're just going to set up the wheels now. So we've got the Hyper D67s, brake disc one side, then we'll whack on the new rear cassette, which is 3411 from Neutron, get the wheels set up, get them in the bike, then we could do chain indexing, and then we've got to sort out bar position, bar tape. We're getting there. We are getting there. Look at the fork, you idiot. 140 in the rear, 160 up front, time to whack on the cassette. So this is the Neutron cassette, which is milled from one piece of steel and then one piece of aluminium, and then they're bonded together. So it's super lightweight, 3411, and we're gonna put it on this. I didn't design, well, I did obviously choose for it to get a purple cassette, but I didn't know I was gonna be building a black bike. Looks quite cool, looks very cool. Hopefully it'll look good on the bike. A little bit upset that I decided to go with a purple rear cassette, but we'll see how it comes out once it's all together. Obviously, with the closed axle ends, you want to make sure that you grease your axles. So right, it's time to come clean, and I'm going to tag Grant from GC Performance in this one because, guys, mistakes do happen, and somehow I put the front fork on backwards, and I was thinking, oh my God, I've got to like redo it all. But no, what I can do is, because I left myself some room on the brake cables, is push the cables back in. I pulled the levers up a little bit, give myself a little bit of cable room, and I can just pull one cable around the top now, and then saved myself the headache having to undo all the hard work that I put into putting the levers and doing the hydraulic cables. I mean, it was close to disaster, if I'm honest with you, but these things happen when you are learning to do things. I still think I'm doing a pretty good job, but easy mistakes do happen when this is maybe the third bike I've ever built. But I'm glad I caught that one now. I don't know when else I would catch it. I'd be riding down the road with a wheel backwards, but we solved it. So like I said, all the cables are now like routed in the right place. What I have to do is just bring this front cable around the other side of the steerer tube, and then there it's coming out of the steerer tube. It's on the correct side. Replace my spacers. Oh, I'm gonna put my little lock ring in first, just to lock the cables in the correct place, and locks the steerer tube in the right place. So now, yes, I don't know how I managed to mess that up without realizing. Just enough room for it all to happen, because I hadn't put the you know, being able to bring my levers up, push a bit of room into the cables, just about saved it. So you might as well do this now because I want it to look like a bike as soon as possible. So saddle is going to go on. This is beautiful. It's a Pro logo. It's got carbon rails though, so you have to use a slightly different seat clamp, and the bike comes with 2 seat clamps, one for a normal steel rail and one for the slightly wider carbon rails. So this will accommodate this. Whack it in here. Getting closer and closer to something that resembles a bike. Right, so it's time to sort this crank out, and I need to get it a little bit better because there's way too much lateral play. So the bottom bracket comes with some shims, so I'm going to use both of those. I have 2 that come with that bottom bracket, one from the old bottom bracket that I might use. I'm just going to whack them both on. Bit of a guessing game. Maybe put the thicker one on this side so it comes and brings the crank arm outside of hitting the front derailleur. It's my main concern. But guys, we are kind of getting to the point where we are caring less and less, and we just want it done. I do think running SRAM dubs, Hambini, you know, the guy's been in the game for a while. I'm not necessarily saying I like him, but he is correct about running SRAM dubs on BB86 bottom brackets. Let's get this done, come on. Right, I'm using a SRAM 12-speed chain. This is my old one. I'm eventually going to put a new one that I have on it, but I just want to see this thing built up first before we do anything too crazy. So we're just going to position the front and rear brake pads. So we're going to loosen them off, hold the brakes, and then tighten them up a bit. So the brakes at some stage are going to need bleeding. But at the moment, I just want to get this up and running. And we've got ourselves the making of a bike here. Just going to do the same for the front. Right, also it is worth pointing out, I haven't actually told the group set that it is a 12-speed just yet. So I think it's trying to shift 13 gears at the moment. So we'll do that in a second. But the travel on the chain, on the front chain ring, is a lot better like this. Don't worry, I do fully understand that there are mechanics out there or people who build bikes who are probably lamenting some of the things that I have done or the way I've done stuff today. But it's how you learn, guys. Get out there and do it. And if I built a bike at the end of it, there's nothing wrong with that. Right, chain's got to come off anyway because we're going to reposition this front derailleur, and then we're just going to basically give it a crack from there and see what we've got. Then we're going to set up, I mean, we're pretty much done. So next time you see me, guys, I'm going to have this fully built. You don't want to watch this stuff. See you in a second when we can take it for a ride. So I was going to go for a ride with Jason from Cycling Unboxed, and very quickly, I'm going to give you the full weight of the build. Heads up. We've got pedals on, we've got bike mount on, but no computer. We've put bar tape on now, bar ends. Saddle, I mean, yeah, sealant, these are tubeless.
Apart from bottle cages, this is the full shebang, it's ready to go, eh?
Yes,
so, yeah.
That's exactly it. Apart from bottle cages. I can't see what it says. Hit me with it.
It says 7.2 kilos, my friend. It's good, 7.2 kilos for a full build.
On
yeah, 67 deep rims, like, that's huge. Absolutely huge. To be honest, I am quite impressed with this, I must say.
What do you think it looks like?
What do I think it looks like?
As in star-wise?
Oh, star-wise. As a package, it comes together really well. Like this, as a complement, it looks more like a Western style brand frame. There's no bad bits on it. It's all very cleanly done. I really like the way it looks. It's got more of a classic style to it, more of a normal bike frame, but it does have aero components and aero shapes to it.
Yeah. Nice, nice, nice. So I reckon if I went small wheels and TPU tubes, we could probably get the weight down, but I'm not too fussed by it. Pretty happy with that build, and hopefully soon, at one point, we're going to swap it back to a full SRAM force, and then we can take it and compare it to the SL8 Pro. Say goodbye, Jason.
Ciao.